This is Don Samulak from Editage, President of U.S. Operations, and I have the great pleasure of being here today in San Antonio at the Council of Science Editors meeting with Jeffrey Beall, very well known for his outward activities in trying to identify best practices in the use of open access publishing. So welcome, Jeffrey.
Thank you very much.
It's glad to be here. It's been a wonderful conference. And I wanted to talk to you for a long time because Editage really serves an Asian need, an Asian Pacific need in understanding how to get published in the Western literature. But we all know that with open access movements, there has been great concern about what you have actually coined as a phrase of predatory publishing and what makes a good journal versus a predatory journal. But let's take steps back a bit and let's just talk about open access movement and what makes an open access journal period from a publisher point of view, so that authors have an awareness of what the open access movement is really all about.
Well, the goal of the open access movement is actually a very positive goal, and it's to make all research freely available so that researchers all over the world can have free access to it as long as they have access to a computer and the internet. So it's a very noble goal. Unfortunately, some publishers have decided to exploit one of the main distribution models, which I call the gold open access model. And in that model, authors are charged a fee upon acceptance of their manuscript, and that fee is used to finance the publication of the articles. Now, unfortunately, a lot of counterfeit publishers have emerged that are pretending to be authentic publishers, but they really just want the money, and they want to get the money from as many authors as possible. Even though they say they do a proper peer review, they basically just accept all articles very quickly, and then they take the money from the authors, and then the authors are left with a publication in a very low quality journal.
So I can play devil's advocate, and I can say that publishers, authors have been paying page charges for journals since the beginning of time, so to speak, and that publishers have always been, or authors, in order to get published, have always been paying fees. What is the difference between a gold open access and publication fees today versus the older processes of page charges and subscription fees in traditional journals?
Well, page charges, which actually still exist, are usually paid to what we call society publishers. And these are publishers from a society of scholars, for example, the American Chemistry Society, the American Physical Society. They're nonprofit organizations. But the problem is with the new model, the gold open access model, we have commercial publishers whose goal is to make as much money as possible. And they're not really page charges. These are what are called article processing charges. And they're a lot higher than page charges generally, and they're pure profit for the for-profit company.
Mm-hmm. One of the challenges in Asia is that many authors, whether it be in China or in many of the other countries through Asia Pacific, are not really aware of the quality of brand of a journal. They're aware of the big journals, Nature, Science, on the medical side, Journal of the American Medical Association, JAMA, or Lancet. But when you get into the society journals, microbiology journals, names can change, and I understand that this is really a strategy of predatory publishers. Maybe you can explain a little bit of that.
Sure. The predatory publishers use lots of tricks to make people think that they are legitimate publishers. And one of the tricks that they use is they have journal titles that sound as if they're a legitimate international journal. They often use the term international in the title. They often have titles that are very similar, maybe only one or two words different than legitimate journal titles. The names of the publishers themselves often will have the name of a Western country like Canada or the United States or Britain or British in them, even though they're published in South Asia, for example. So they'll do anything they can to trick researchers into thinking that they're legitimate publishers when, in fact, many times they're not.
And this is the predatory nature of the publisher, is that they're trying to literally trick the author into submitting a paper to them when they have no real interest in the science. They only have a commercial interest in the money that they're gaining from publishing.
That's exactly right. They use deception and lack of transparency to trick authors into thinking that they're legitimate publishers when they're not.
Some of the things that you showed in a presentation at the Council of Science Editors meeting that we just went past was with respect to the fact that some of these journals go as far as to fabricate an impact factor, take text right out off of pages of legitimate journals, and while they're doing something that is inappropriate, they're actually not even doing it in a smart way. They're very lazy about how they create these journal fronts. And maybe you can talk about some of the things that an author really should look for to validate that the journal they're looking to submit to is in fact a reputable journal.
Well, that's exactly right. The predatory publishers will lie about anything because their goal is to get the money from the author. And what they're selling is a quick and easy publishing of your research. And the high quality journals take longer to publish articles typically because they go through copy editing and they go through a proper peer review. So the predatory publishers are selling speed and an easy publication. And we know that true scholarly publication isn't fast and it's not easy all the time. So beware of any publisher that tells you they can publish your paper in a month or less from the time you submit it. Also, take some time and look at their website, look at the other papers that have been published, look at the quality of those papers. Ask yourself, would you want your article to be next to one of these other papers in a table of contents? And look at the authors and look at the editorial board members. And I also advise people to look at the location of the publisher. Many times these publishers will hide their locations. You have no idea where they're based, or they even lie about where they're based. They might say they're based in New York, when in fact they're just using a mailbox service, mail forwarding service there in New York.
So one of the other strategies that I understand that they've used to try to entice authors to submit the papers to them are mailing campaigns and invitations to be authors, and maybe you can talk a little bit about the tactics, unscrupulous tactics that they take in order to attract an author and what an author needs to be beware of.
Sure. As researchers grow and become known in their field, their names and email addresses will appear on websites, and these publishers will go and harvest that information from the websites, and they'll send you spam emails soliciting manuscript submissions from you. And they've even gotten very good at that. They will send personalized spam email as if it's one friend writing to another friend, and they'll say, for example, we read your article, and then they'll give the name of your the title of your article, and they'll say, we found that to be very interesting. Would you like to submit another one to us? So they're trying to appeal to the ego of the individual. It's a very effective strategy, and I think all researchers need to be aware of that strategy. In addition, I'll say that the publishers often don't tell the truth. They'll say that their journals have an impact factor when they really don't have an impact factor. They will lie about that, and they'll lie about other measures of impact, and they'll do anything they can they'll say anything they can to make you submit your article to them and pay them the article processing charge.
For any young investigator, it's obviously flattering to receive a letter inviting you to be a reviewer of the journal, inviting you to maybe even be on the editorial board, or the fact that your research has supposedly been followed and they're looking for you to submit a paper to them. These are practices, quite honestly, that in some cases legitimate publishers have used in the past. How does one, especially a young investigator differentiate the difference? What's real and what's not real? Do you have any tips?
I advise people to read widely in your field, get to know the top journals, see which journals have the most citations. Also, talk to senior colleagues in your field, to ask them what the good journals are. Look at the journals that they publish in. Look at the legitimate impact factors of journals.